To coin a favourite phrase of the left wing, it has been my lived experience over the past 3 years or so that a lot of crimes happening against women especially seem to be committed by people who aren't from this country.
Whoa, that's not something you're going to hear very often on mainstream media because they have an agenda.
I've been followed home with a man in one of those Afghan Kulpul hats chuntering away in some language. All the way to my front door, I had to hide in my neighbour's house and pretend I didn't live in my house because he was lurking around outside trying to do indecent things to himself. That's right. I've also had my phone robbed off me by a Roma woman with a scarf on.
How infuriating. A guest in your own country, often living off your tax dollars, robs you.
And I'm like, yeah, what are we doing here? Who are these people? Why are we importing all this stuff? I cannot walk down the streets where I live anymore without weird men leering at me, making comments. Look, I'm not one of these Me Too movement women. When it was builders wolf whistling from vans, I don't care. Sometimes it brightens up your day. Because what they don't do is they don't get into your personal space. They don't trail you. They don't physically approach you. They don't follow you to your front door. It's a very different sort of more harmless thing, a wolf whistle, than some of the stuff I'm being subjected to now.
Interesting. Here's a woman that has experienced catcalling, but there's an entirely different intent, depending upon who is behind. A feeling of, am I about to be sexually assaulted?
And some of the stuff my best mate who lives around the corner, again, her lived experience. Also, guess what? A woman with long blonde hair. She has 4 teenage daughters. All of them now have at some point been sexually assaulted. They have been groped. They have been followed. They are scared living in London. What is going on? So I am going to keep talking about this.
Wow. 4 daughters all have been sexually assaulted in London. Incredible.
I don't care if people turn around and goes, you're a racist, because my safety and the safety of women in this country is paramount. That is way more important than offending certain communities who, quite frankly, have men with medieval values when it comes to women, and I ain't standing for it. So I'm going to keep on this subject. Now, one thing I think we need to do in this country is publish statistics on crime by nationality. We don't do it. Apparently we don't keep them. We're too lily-livered. Oh, we keep statistics on the victims of crime by nationality, so we can turn around and go, oh, look, it's all poor people who are not from here being targeted. What about the fact that actually, if you look on, there's this brilliant website about organised crime around the world. The contributors to that are people like the CIA, Interpol, Europol, and they've got all the stats of who's committing crime where in what countries. It's an amazing deep dive. You can sort of go onto this map and zoom in on a particular nation that explains all the sort of trends and patterns. About 90% of our organised crime was being committed by Albanians. I mean, for crying out loud, what are we importing? Now, countries that do actually publish their statistics, Scandinavian countries, I've got some of them here, and so I want to sort of run you through a bit of this. Now, Denmark increased its level of non-Western born immigrants between 2020 and 2023 by a staggering 158%. 158%. Turns out, at the same time, crime went up by 31%. Is there a correlation? Well,
Nah, just a coincidence. You would think immigrants would also be concerned about these numbers, because if you're a law-abiding immigrant, you don't want these criminals tarnishing your reputation. I would think this would concern you.
Are being committed by men who were not born in Sweden. They weren't even born in European countries or Western countries. That was Denmark, sorry. Now, Sweden, in that same period, their level of non-Western immigration went up by 86%. Overall crime went up by 24%. Is there a correlation? Well, I don't know. Rape went up by 359%.
This is mind-boggling. If I was Swedish, I would be concerned, but I guess they're too liberal. Well, your daughters are going to pay a terrible price for your liberal attitudes.
Even the Prime Minister of Sweden has turned around and said, you know, perhaps we were a bit naive when it came to our immigration policy. So there you go. These countries do publish league tables of who's committing crimes by nationality, and believe me, it makes for stark reading. We need to do that in this country, because if we're not honest with ourselves and the situation we're in, people like me are at risk. When I get the tube home to West London from East London, I am at risk, and I don't want to live in a country that doesn't value my safety enough to have this conversation. Now, a country that might find that this is soon going to be in train is Ireland, because they had 3.8 million as a population. That's staggeringly gone up to 5.3 million in just a matter of years because of, you guessed it, loads of inward migration, a 39% increase in non-Western migrants. The Irish, it seems to me, are already flexing their muscles, the Irish public, and getting pretty annoyed at some of the tent cities popping up. And believe you me, if there's going to be an insurrection on this issue anywhere, I reckon it'll be Ireland. So let's cross over now and speak to the president of the Irish Freedom Party, Herman Kelly, and get his thoughts on this. Herman, how are you doing?
Hello, Alex. Great to see you.
Yeah, well, great to see you.
It is very brave of you to talk about this, because we both know it's very un-PC to do so. But I believe it's more important to be factually correct than to be politically correct.
Factually correct. Now, that is not something you're going to hear very often on mainstream media. Bravo.
Because the lives of people, like I have 4 daughters, and I can tell you for myself, a number of years ago, 2 miles from my home here in County Louth in Ireland, a convicted rapist, a guy called, Roman Crock. He was convicted of attempted rape of a 14-year-old girl in Derby a number of years ago. And when he came out of jail, I think he was in jail for a year and a half, where did he come? He came to Dunleer in County Louth because his mother had been given a free social house in the middle of the town. A convicted rapist, and of course when he arrived, there was a huge increase in burglaries in the area until he was caught, until a number of neighbours, and actually the local police did a very good job, caught the guy. He got 8 months in jail, and he got so much hassle out locally that he decided once he got out of jail he was leaving Ireland completely. But there has been a huge increase in sexual assault, in crime, over the last number of years. For example, in 2022, there were 12 women murdered in Ireland. 5 of those were murdered by non-national. Given that 22% of the population are non-national, that's a very high percentage. So I would say it's not just correlation. I would move towards that there's actually a causal link between a large number of unvetted males into a country and an increase in crime.
Now, we know for certain that there are foreign gangs, and it's strange, actually. The countries committing crimes in various other countries via foreign gangs are sort of particular to particular countries. In the UK, it's largely been Albanian gangs. In other countries, it might be Turkish gangs, so on and so forth. Mexican gangs, if you're looking at America. But it's very clear that, you know, the international things like the drugs trade is international, human trafficking is international, sex trafficking, so on and so forth. And there are various nations who are, you know, pulling strings and levers, and these are big international events, and that, you know, we certainly need to control borders and know who's coming in, because we don't want to import organised crime. The thing that it seems to me that we're still not talking about, and this is despite the exposure of grooming gangs in this country. Every time I read the newspaper now, and I follow the news across Europe, there seems to have been a rape gang operating in Brussels or operating in Paris. The amount of young girls now who seem to be being raped by, it's actually called the lover boy technique, I think, usually Somalian gangs, not always, North African gangs as well. The amount of young girls now falling victim to gang rape. Gang rape, that is one of the most horrific things that can happen to a little girl, and almost every single time these gangs are coming from countries who, to put it in a mild manner, don't share our cultural values.
I think people have to begin to be honest and call it what it is, because if, as you say, if we look at the ethnicity and culture and religion, like, let's talk what it is. It's a Muslim Islamic religion of these people. They're normally Algerian, Pakistani, Somalian, almost without exception, all across England and various other countries as well. And it's rape jihad is what is going on. It is the damage to young girls and the humiliation of men within their culture as well. to come in, to dominate and say, we're in charge now. That's what it's about.
Wow. Come in and dominate. We're in charge now. Scary, scary, scary. To see the effects of open borders and immigration on U.S. soil, click here, and I will see you next time.